Hi, my name is Billy, and today I'll be walking you through my process of editing photos. I was out at a music video shoot for my friend's band, and there was some graffiti artists on set, and I was actually able to take some pictures of them so I could show you guys how I work. So let's jump on into Lightroom and see what we can do. The first step I always do is the basic changes to my photos, like exposure, contrast, highlights, and so forth. I dimmed the exposure a little bit at first, and later I actually brought it up, so don't pay attention to that. Contrast, I always like to put a little bit of punchiness in my photos, so I moved that up about 30. Looks like 31 actually. Highlights I brought down because the light was a little bit too intense over the top. Shadows I moved up to 50. Whites and blacks, the whites I put up a little bit even though I turned the highlights down because I wanted the white wall and the jumpsuit to be a little bit more of a focus. And the blacks I brought down because I wanted to make the deeper parts of the image contrast more with the brighter parts of the image. Next thing I did was mess around with the point curve tool. I normally just do a basic S-curve, which you'll see here. I kind of messed around with it a little bit just to see what I could do with it, but for the most part I did a basic curve where I would bring down the blacks a little bit and bring up the highlights so the image would have a little bit more contrast. And with the basic corrections, it's always a tweaking battle where I'm always constantly looking back and forth at, okay, because I did this to the S-curve, it made other things in the photo have to change, like bring up the shadows a little bit more so you could see some more of the color in the hoodie and things of that nature. So that's also something that I go back and forth, is tweaking all the things until I'm happy with how it looks before I move on to anything else. And here's a before and after, just after we did our basic corrections. Next we move on to changing the color aspects of the photo. I usually start off with making the temperature a little bit cooler than actually shot because I tend to like cooler colors more than warmer colors. And especially on this shoot day, it was cold outside with snow, so I wanted to make it reflect that vibe that was of the day that I took the photo. So I moved it down just a hair. Next, I always like, on cooler photos, I tend to put a little bit of magenta, not a whole lot, but just a little bit. And then for this photo, I think because we're working with spray paint, I like to turn up the vibrance quite a bit and the saturation a little bit. The vibrance, I believe, changes the most bright colors of the photo, so I turn that up a little bit more than the saturation because I think the saturation, I didn't want to saturate the entire image, just the more vibrant colors of the image. Here's another before and after we change the temperature, tint, vibrance, and saturation of the image. And again, even after we change the color of the image a little bit, I always go back to the basic corrections tab to make sure that everything is set after the colors have changed. I skipped the color mixer in this photo because I wanted to keep the colors and tones of the paint to be as natural and as true as possible. So I moved straight on to the effects tab in this photo. I boosted the clarity in this image to bring out some of the texture at the cost of some brightness. I then skipped the rest of this tab because I didn't think it needed any further changes. I then messed around with the split toning a little bit, adding a little bit of magenta into the highlights and a little bit of like turquoise into the shadows. So I chose to zoom into the jumpsuit because of the hatch mark texture, so I could move the slider and see the area it was affecting most, so I could really dial in the texture of the jumpsuit. I then moved the noise reduction slider about a third of the way up to get rid of some of the noise in the image without making the image too buttery. After these final changes, I then cropped the image to eliminate some of the distracting background on the right hand side. I then used the ellipse masking tool to make some last minute changes to brighten up the corners of the image. And lastly, I moved over to Photoshop so I could use the clone stamp tool to get rid of the boot in the bottom right hand corner to eliminate distraction. If you like this video, I'm going to be making more just like it, so feel free to hit that subscribe button. If you want to keep up with me outside of this YouTube channel, I stream on Twitch 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, starting at 4 p.m. So if you want to hang out and play some games, come on over. I'll put a link in the description below. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys next time.